So I wanted to kind of summarize like why I think I'm here. So I want to show you, so I'm kind of like the de facto manager of a microscopy co-op at NIST. So this is Microscopy Nexus. We consist of about 15 instruments now across 2 campuses and different organizational units within NIST. And we get along remarkably well considering the geographic and kind of like the operational differences. So you might be able to recognize, for those of you who are microscopy enthusiasts, that these microscopes are different technologies. They span different vintages for decades. There are high throughput. Is someone else speaking? Maybe could we?
Yeah, sorry about that. We ask everyone else, please mute your microphones.
Thank you. Anyway, so they're different, very different data rates, right? So we have things that are like kilobyte, like word, like document files to, like terabyte, terabytes, on a half hour is sort of like our upper limit. So when we have to think about how do we get all of this data into one place and make it sensible to anybody for reuse and such, we really went about and developed an ecosystem, right, to contain all of that data. So I kind of enumerated it in different categories. The first is our instrument, right, which I call this firewall square because it's a firewall inside of a firewall. The instruments live there. And then through a what I call the data choreography pipeline, it sends data onto, you could process it with on-site high-speed network and also like computing resources, which is number 3, right? So we have like HPC, we can operate on that data right away. We don't have to move data around, especially if we're looking at terabytes of data at a time. And then kind of central to this discussion really is the data management ecosystem. Right now, Nexus LIMS is the curator, labeler, and kind of the discoverability tool for our users that we had developed in-house. But in addition, this is all linked to our tool scheduler, which we use. NEMO is also another tool developed by NIST. In progress, we're evaluating electronic lab notebook, and also we're developing the instrument database that would be consistent with the PID and schema recommendation from RDA. So this is all happening in-house right now. And then finally, for community resources, just like, kind of like, hey, who has this to borrow? I wanted to check out this instrument holder, this kind of thing. We use a SharePoint site to help coordinate all of that, because after all, we're a community. We built this for our community. So just kind of as a conversation starter for this group, I wanted to share with you what we've learned as a team building this ecosystem. We learned a few things, right? One, you can't change people's habits, right? You can't change people. You can't ask people to record like a form with 100 metadata fields. It's just not going to happen. But however, with the right incentive structure, what we found is that people will change, right? So for example, early on we say, hey, we're moving to central file server. It means you could get rid of, and you could get rid of your thumb drive, and in exchange we give you online compute resources. We found that people were really happy to do that. They can move things out that way. We aim to be modular, because technologies come and go and things can change. What we learned is that some things are not worth fighting over, right? So for example, we see fights over vocabulary, what units to use, format, languages. What we've learned is that we can bypass all of that fight. There are good enough backend dictionaries that you can build that is not worth spending energy over. And then finally, we learned that persistent identifiers really are your best friends, which kind of leads into the next slide and my final slide, which is what might the future lab look like, right? And so with things like persistent identifiers, it would enable things like autonomous experiments, right? So I think we're all going there. I'm also kind of going with the previous speaker, right? There's looking for more interconnections just beyond, my domain, right? So we have electron microscopes, but we might, but those people bring a sample in from somewhere, right? There might be really good information there as well. We're looking for reproducibility and traceability like anybody else, but of course we care about that a lot because we're a NIST. And then the last two are things that we're really worried about today, right? A clear statement on data use and reuse. And then, we want to make sure those processes, if you're automated your experiment, if your data, you want to make sure you have good cybersecurity. So I'll end with that.